Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all today. We are going to be doing a little bit of a foam rolling class today, and foam rolling is a fantastic technique to be able to release the muscle, to lengthen out the fascia throughout the body. It is certainly, you've probably heard me say in class many, many times, my go-to option in the evenings. I mean, you would be amiss not to see me upstairs watching a bit of TV, sitting on my foam roller, stretching out my muscles at the end of the day. You may have seen these being used many times in pre and post workout. It's a terrific technique to be able to lengthen out muscle tightness, any sort of knots that you might have within the muscle, but also more importantly, the fascia, which is like this covering, if you will, that runs throughout the body and almost acts like, I always kind of related to like a casing on a sausage, and there's this thin layer of fascia that runs through the body, covering muscles, and sometimes that fascia gets really tight, and there's discussion in the fitness world: is it the muscle that's tight, or is it the fascia that's tight, or is it a combination of the two? And this is just a wonderful technique to be able to use to be able to help lengthen out, work out any knots that you might be having in the body. I know for myself, I often frequently get them in my calf muscles. And this is a really great way to kind of allow those knots to kind of release. So we're going to be doing a short series today. I've got quite a long, I think it says here 36 inches. It's quite a long foam roller. I know some of you at home may have one that's probably about halfway. So you can use either or. This one is quite, it's dense, but it does have a little bit of give. Sometimes if you have one at home that's quite hard, it can feel really intense. So if you're new to foam rolling or SMR, which is called self-myofascial release, which is a massage technique, which is what we're going to be doing today, you may want to consider buying one that has a little bit more give to it, especially if this is really new to you. Going in with one that's really hard can feel uncomfortable, and we don't want to have that. So explore different options. They're not very expensive. Sometimes even having different ones in the house, different sizes, different textures, or different densities can really be helpful, because we're not the same every day. So we might, one time we might want something a little bit more firmer, one time we might want something a little bit with a little bit more give in it. So definitely explore that. I know I've seen those foam rollers with textures on them where they're bumped, or there's kind of ridges on them. I actually haven't used one myself, so I really don't know how that would feel. I would imagine it could be pretty intense, depending on how deeply those ridges are, or how high they are. So again, I probably wouldn't go with one of those on the very first round, but I would explore maybe starting with something that's a little bit smoother, and then as you move on, if you continue to do it, then maybe you can explore with different options. So we're going to begin today actually on our sits bones, and we're going to begin kind of toe to tail, toe to head. So we're going to be working from the bottom up. We'll flip over onto our tummy and do this on the front side of the body as well. And I'm just going to give you some kind of generic areas of the body that typically really can benefit. There's so many exercises you can do on this, so please, it's not limited to what I'm doing. I'll add some more videos with some different options as we go through this series, but we're going to just begin with the basics today. So it's kind of the prime mover areas of the body. So I'm going to begin by taking my foam roller, and I'm going to set it kind of, I don't know, kind of not lengthways, but across my mat here. And so if you've got some shoulder issues, I want you to be really careful that you're making sure that you've got some really good stabilization through the shoulders, because we will be required to kind of lift our body so that we set it down and kind of be able to create that rolling front to back. So if you've got some things, I'm going to offer you some techniques or some options that you can choose that put a little bit less pressure on the shoulders, but just be mindful if you've got some things going on that you're careful. I'm just going to adjust my camera just a little bit so you can see down a little bit more here as I come down to the floor. Great, so I'm going to begin first and foremost with my calf muscles. And so a couple of techniques here, a couple of options here. First and foremost, if you've got a shorter one, typically they're probably halfway, maybe about 18 inches wide. I think that's probably about the smallest one you'll see out on the market. So you can definitely, if bringing 2 legs onto that doesn't feel good, you can absolutely do this with 1 and single leg only. So I'm going to begin, and this is actually a really good option if lifting your body using your arms is going to be too heavy. So then I would definitely use this as an alternative option, because you can use your landing leg as a way to be able to raise your body a little bit off the floor. So making sure that first and foremost, I'm really careful to keep my hands planted down to the ground. I'm going to extend, I've got my right leg left resting on the foam roller, and I'm going to just go ahead and press into my left and lift my hip bones enough so that I allow my body the opportunity to kind of foam roller from ankle right to kind of the back of my knee. And I like to kind of roll in a very kind of fun way, kind of internally and externally rotating my leg. So I kind of get different areas of the body. And you might find that as you do this, you get to a point where, oh, there might be some points that feel a little, I don't know, intense. I'm going to say like, maybe there's a part like, oh yeah, I feel that. And so if that's the case, I've been taught in my training that if you have a part in specific that feels just like I've got right now, right where I am right now, I can feel like a pretty big knot there. And I'm just going to rest my body weight on that and just kind of hold it there. And really what your body does is the muscle sends a message to the brain, and it says to the brain, all right, brain, you need to release this muscle. And it takes maybe, 45 seconds to a minute. So I'd hold on to that space if you can, and just kind of let your body kind of rest there. So anytime you're doing this type of work and you've got sort of an intense kind of feeling in the muscle, I'd just kind of go ahead and hold it. So I'm just going to actually just go over and do my other side. So I'm evil, not evil. I'm equal. I said evil. And what I want you to be mindful of, and I'm kind of rolling through this quite quickly, so I'm not going to be here for the traditional 45 to minute as I would normally if I were doing this kind of on my own. So I'm just going to show you that spots. You can absolutely pause the video, do your 45 seconds to a minute on each side, and then move on to the next effort. So just kind of experiment with that. Beautiful. So again, I can feel this a bit in my shoulders. If you're definitely dealing with some shoulder things, you might not want to do both legs, but let me show you what it looks like. And I'll give you another option to make a little bit more weight go into the muscle. And again, totally optional to you. You're going to be the driver of what decision works best for you. So in this case, I'm going to rest both of my calves here on the foam roller. And again, I'm going to energize through those hands. I'm going to press those hands into the floor, and then I'll go ahead and I'll lift and I'll roll forward to back. Now, maybe that is enough. Again, we're thinking shoulders want to stay really nice and supported through that upper body. But if you want a little bit more intensity, maybe you feel like you need a little bit more pressure, then I would go ahead and cross your leg over the other. This is just like, whoo, this is quite a lot for me, actually. I find this quite intense. I don't typically do this because it is quite intense, just that extra weight of the leg. And maybe go ahead and set yourself down and cross over the other side. So again, experiment. I think part of doing this is just being curious about your body and what feels right for you. Maybe this is just not the right option, but maybe it is. I do see this quite frequently, so it's certainly good for some people. Okay, but not if you're coming new to this. I would probably start off single leg, especially also for the weight of the shoulder. So again, we're going to bring it up now to the quadriceps. Again, always think you can do this single leg. So again, a little bit less pressure on the shoulder here just because of the fact that we're a little bit higher, a little bit closer to our midline. And again, I'm going to just try and draw that inner thigh in there, get those adductors and get those abductors, just kind of rolling inward and outward. This is just feels really good, actually. This doesn't feel as intense as my calf muscles. So, going to a massage therapist is absolutely wonderful, but we can't necessarily go to one weekly. So I kind of look at my foam roller as my temporary in between massage therapist modality, and I really love that this really gets into the muscles, really moves thing out. If you've got a tight low back or you've got some tight hips, gosh, I mean, the foam roller can really be an absolute miracle worker for some of that type of tightness in the body. So really try to incorporate this into your workouts, especially if you're training really regularly. I would definitely make this part of your routine for about 10 to 12 minutes at the end of your workout. I like to do it at the end just because my muscles are warm, but I mean, you don't have to. Actually, in fact, during my personal training with NASM, they this is one of the first things we start to do to try to work out any imbalances in the muscles. So if you've got some tightness in your bodies and there's some imbalances, like your knees tend to knock in or your knees tend to knock out when you do squats, that could really demonstrate some imbalances in the muscle structure in the leg. So this is a great way. This is where we start actually in NASM in the training with individuals, as we start with foam rolling, just to kind of work out those imbalances so that when we're training with strength, we're not working with those imbalances in that space. We're kind of giving the muscles much of an opportunity to work as effectively as possible. All right, so that's great. So that was that hamstrings. We did the calves, we did the hamstrings. We're gonna move up to the glutes here. So I want you to be really careful when you get onto this foam roller. It's wobbly, it moves. So we're gonna go ahead and lift up, and you can kind of come in. I like to come in forward onto it because I can see it. I don't typically do it from the back and try to get on it that way. I don't think it's the most safest way, but again, you'll kind of figure out what works best for you. So with this one, the glute one, we'll start off just kind of rolling down onto the glutes. And I'm going to just kind of shift my knees over to one side to give my hips a little bit of rotation. And I'm going to be careful to keep my hips kind of slightly lifted. So in this case, I've got my left hip slightly lifted off the foam roller, kind of putting all that weight into my glute. It's going to really get that glute max nice and stretched out. I can even feel a little bit through the side of the hip here, but I'm going to really focus just on that glute maximus. Good. So this is a tight one for me. I can feel I can feel some pretty intense sensation through the glute maximus here right now. I've been dealing with a hip issue for quite a long time, actually hamstring / hip. And so when I get to that right side, I could definitely feel it, but I could tell you it's been a real pain reliever just getting on the foam roller to kind of stretch out all the fascia and the muscles around the hip area. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the other side. So again, I'm just doing a gentle glute massage first, and then I'm going to move into my piriformis one, which you'll see is a little bit more intense. Piriformis is a muscle that is a constant worker. It runs laterally across the gluteus, internal, so it's inside. The glute max, I think, if I'm not mistaken, covers it. So, but it runs laterally across the gluteus, the glute area, and it's a worker, and it doesn't get a lot of stretching. So this is a great way to get into that piriformis, as I'll show you in a minute. Good, let's come back through center. So again, if you're doing this at home, you're gonna wanna stay there for a little bit longer. I'm kind of doing a little bit of a quicker paced one so that you don't have to spend a half an hour with me here, but you can do this on your own. So think also that maybe your glutes might be tight, but don't think that it's isolated to one area. So when you're doing this type of work, I really want you to think of kind of seeing the picture as a whole. Your body isn't compartmentalized into areas that, okay, if my muscles are tight in one area, that isn't being affected by other areas of the body. So when you do this type of work, try to think of it as, I'm going to do this as a whole picture. So I'm just going to go ahead and cross my left ankle over my right knee, and then I'm going to go ahead and shift my weight over, and I'm actually kind of leaning into that left glute, and this is where I'm going to get into that piriformis. So traditionally, when I've done this, it's pretty intense. It's normal that you feel that sensation pretty significantly in the piriformis. If it's too much, back off, act with caution, and and use that common sense that if it feels like it's too much and it's painful, you got to back off a little bit, because we just want to build our endurance towards this a little bit more. Good. We'll go ahead and switch over to the other side. Again, you might stay there a little longer. Right over left. Then I'm going to lean over into this and just get, and this one definitely feels a little bit more intense. However, it's manageable. It's manageable. But I can tell you, I've been in this position before, and it was quite unmanageable. And anytime you've got some foam rolling work that you're doing, and you've got some sensation or any sort of like tingling or numbness, you got to back off, because that's just an indication that you might be on a nerve or something like that. So we want to be able to be really aware of our body, how it's feeling, so that we're not creating any kind of contraindications or anything that really doesn't work for us. Good. Nice job. So let's come back through center. Now we're going to go into the low back here. This is where we're going to kind of trust a little bit of the foam roller here. And again, I'm just going to kind of come midway, low back to midway. Again, just kind of work with what feels right for you. Maybe this feels like it's too much. Maybe you might avoid it. That's totally cool. So it's kind of, I'm actually kind of focusing more on my mid to upper back here. Maybe even hold the hands behind the head. Again, a little bit of trust on the foam roller here. Beautiful. Good. Just gonna see how that feels. And I'm gonna just actually experiment a little bit and bring it down. Maybe even, just kind of rolling on it this way is a little bit less intense, but maybe you can get into that low back a little bit. It's almost like a supported bridge, actually. It kind of feels good to open up those hips. Great. So let's go ahead and we'll experiment with that. We're going to come back off. Make sure you, see, that's why we got to be careful. It rolls away. All right. So we're going to work the upper part of the back here. And this is just a fabulous opener through that back. So maybe you're going to come down even further, more to the upper part of the scapula. Try to rest your head in your hands. The last thing I want us to do is get into this work and be like, oh yeah, it feels great in the back, but I've now strained my neck because I'm trying to lift my head up. So let the head feel heavy and just kind of roll over the shoulder blades. This just feels like a glorious stretch. So yeah, I mean, if you've got some tightness in the upper body, my goodness, this is the way to go. This just feels so nice. Terrific. Great. So just kind of get into that upper part of the body, the traps, the rhomboids. You can feel just kind of over the shoulder blades. I could stay here all day. Nice job. All right, beautiful. Let's go ahead and set that sits bones down, and we're going to come up. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a lat stretch here, and this can feel pretty intense under the arm. But again, thinking of the picture as a whole. So we're going to just get into that side part of the body here. And again, this for me is really intense. So maybe want to just kind of weigh into the legs a little bit, press into the feet, and just gently just roll. So it's right under that underarm here. You're going to want to keep those core muscles really engaged here. I'm actually not going to stay here too long because this is pretty intense on my right shoulder. I haven't done this one in a while, so I'm not gonna lie to you. This is quite intense. Good. But if it feels good for you, I want you to go on a little bit more. I'm gonna be a little bit careful with that one because, yeah, I felt that. All right, great. Let's do the other side because we gotta make it even. Good. So again, kind of take that arm. You can actually even, I'm thinking about it, we can even take it out with the arm here to the side. Maybe you have the arm up, maybe you have it on the, oh yeah. I think my back is actually going to be like, oh, this actually is intense, but it feels pretty good because don't get into that lat too often. Good. Ooh, good. And then go ahead. You can relax off that one. Good. So we're going to go ahead and come on to our stomach for the next little round for the quadriceps and for a bit of the shin area. So working the peroneals and a little bit of the anterior tibialis here next. So we'll go ahead and make our way kind of rolling forward onto the foam roller. You might need to adjust a little bit of your placement. Again, we want to make sure that we're careful with our arms. So thinking about always genie arms when we're coming into this position, and you'll notice I'm almost in like a plank position. My low back, see if you notice I'm arching my low back. I'm going to pull up and really keep that core area nice and firm so that I'm not arching through the low back. That really just seems like it's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on the back. And it's almost like counterintuitive to work one side and then kind of strain the other side. So here I'm just going to kind of roll forward and back. This actually feels pretty good. I can slightly internally rotate my feet. So it internally rotates my hips and get into a little bit of the different areas of the quadriceps here. So just kind of shift around a little bit, kind of play around with what feels best for you here. Really, I think it's really more of about curiosity and experimentation, kind of noticing if there's any areas. And I'm kind of coming down right to maybe the top part of my knees, keeping that core nice and engaged. I'm not letting go and letting my arch, that low back kind of collapse inward. Nice. Beautiful. And let's go ahead and maybe come up into all fours. And we're going to do the peroneals and the anterior tibialis. So we'll come on to maybe kind of come over the foam roller. Again, going to just kind of play around with where the placement is to make sure you're as safe as possible. And then go ahead and shift. This is, again, you're kind of in that plank position. So there's quite a lot of work that has to be done in the core. You can absolutely kind of experiment, maybe even just coming up a little bit, working the inside of the leg, those peroneals. Sometimes if you're new to this alone can feel pretty intense enough. So just kind of allowing those the inner side of the shin to kind of stretch out here. Working again, maybe from ankle to about knee. And that's really, if this feels like it's too much to weigh into those shoulders, just kind of experiment. Does that feel good? Maybe it gives you a little bit more room. Maybe if we are going to come down, or I'm trying to think about how we can do this. Maybe we kind of come onto the side here, lying, excuse my back, kind of pressing out into the outside of the shin, that anterior tibialis. Whew, this is kind of light, but quite frankly, it can be too much if I go in a little bit too heavy. Maybe you can even lift up and press that left foot in. This probably would be more conducive to getting into that anterior tibialis, taking that left foot forward and kind of supporting your body weight with your arm. Again, it's really a function of kind of playing around with what works best for you. And let's say, for instance, that the lift of the body weight onto the foam roller for certain parts of the body just doesn't work. Maybe you can even manually do it with your hands, kind of just working your way into that area. So let's go ahead and do the other side and kind of begin with that inside, the peroneals here. You can even shift that weight up a little bit. This feels pretty accessible right now. Nice job. Fantastic. Nice job. And then we'll go ahead and we'll go into that anterior tibialis. I think I'm going to have to shift my side over again. Again, I'm just kind of doing this real quick. So at home, I want to spend a little bit more time in this position, playing around with it. And again, just hold on to any parts that maybe feel tender. So if you've got shin splints and you're having a flare up, I'm not sure going into this and doing this type of work would be ideal, especially if you've got a flare up. But certainly good work to do to try to keep all of that really nice and nimble. Again, keeping your upper body nice and tall and engaged, and keeping the core really firmly awake, if you will. Nice job. Then come on down. Great job. Oh, I could do that all day. All right, so that was our quick tutorial, if you will, with our foam roller. So if you haven't done the foam roller before, reminders, Don't go in too heavy, too hard. Take your time with this. You don't need to rush through this. Make sure you have the right foam roller for yourself. Make sure you've got one that has a little bit of give. This one has a little bit of give. It's quite firm, it's quite dense, but because I've been doing it for some time, it actually feels okay. However, my very first one was like a styrofoam foam roller and had a lot of give to kind of almost encase the body a little bit with the body weight. So it was really nice, actually. It felt really good. So this is my foam rolling video. Be on the lookout. I will be adding more videos to this series. Definitely get your foam roller on. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. I hope to see you again in class soon. Bye-bye.